All right, well, let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the fourth event in the MOVA webinar series, during which we will discuss support to female entrepreneurs. This will be a two-part event. The first hour will be a panel discussion, during which our guests will speak about their experiences with entrepreneurship projects in the Solomon Islands, in Kenya, and in Mozambique. And during the second hour, we will look more closely at the experiences and lessons of the MOVA program's work with female entrepreneurs in Mozambique. So before I go any further, I wanted to highlight that this will be a multilingual event and that we will therefore have simultaneous interpretation available into both Portuguese and English, as well as closed captioning into English. So we're joined by Sandra Tamel, who will be interpreting for us today. If you would like to listen in Portuguese or in English while our speakers are speaking Portuguese, please go to your controls at the bottom of your screen and select the globe icon. From there, you can choose the language of your choice, either English or Portuguese. And if you're joining us by phone today, please note that you will need to click on the options menu represented by the three dots on your screen. From there, you will need to click interpretation, select your language, and then accept that choice by clicking done. If you would like to access captions, please select either subtitles or CC at the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions or problems, please do write us a question in the chat, and our technical team will be happy to assist you privately. So to begin today's event, I'd like to say a few words about MOVA. MOVA as a program was launched in 2015 as a flagship women's economic empowerment program. It was financed by the Department for International Development, now the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, and implemented by Oxford Policy Management, or OPM. The program, which was delivered in Mozambique, was designed based on principles of innovation, learning, and adaptation, and over the past 7 years has piloted 24 different approaches to women's economic empowerment. So through these pilots and the range of findings which have emerged from them, MOVA has contributed to significant change in both policy and practice on women's economic empowerment in both Mozambique and beyond. We're extremely proud of the work that we and our numerous partners have done over the years. And although the MOVA program is now winding down, the National Mozambican NGO, also called MOVA, has been created and is continuing the work begun under the program, thanks to the support of multiple donors. So this webinar is a chance for us to celebrate the rich learnings coming from both the MOVA program and already the MOVA NGO, and also to exchange with other practitioners and experts on a range of themes, including today's theme of female entrepreneurship. So without any further delay, it's my real pleasure to introduce you to Iana Barenboim, who has been working with MOVA on entrepreneurship projects for the past 7 years. And Iana will be facilitating today's discussion. Iana, over to you.
Thanks, Magali. I'm very happy to be facilitating this panel today. A fun fact is that we are actually speaking from many global South time zones. It's Wednesday late night for Gianluca's live. Esther and Ludmila are in the middle of their days, and for me, the day just began. So I'm very happy that we found a time that could work for all of us. And thank you so much, Gianluca, Esther, and Ludmila for making the time to be here today and also share your very valuable experiences. I hope you're as keen as me to learn from our great panelists. And we will start with a quick introduction of the panelists and the institutions and projects that they are involved with. And then we'll debate and hear from their experience about 3 specific topics regarding female entrepreneurship. And at the end, we'll have a couple of minutes for Q&A. So if you have any questions, please write them on the chat and I'll read them at the end and pose the questions to our panelists. So Esther, can you begin presenting yourself?
Thank you so much, Iana. We're really excited to be here today, speaking from a rather hot and cold Nairobi. My name is Esther Mwikali. I am a project catalyst at GrowthAfrica. GrowthAfrica is a Pan-African organization that supports entrepreneurs in building their businesses, making sure that they're investment ready, and just giving them the connection and support that they need to grow their businesses. I'm very excited to be here and part of this conversation, as Iana and the Mover team are good friends and partners. Thanks so much, Iana.
Thank you. Ludmila, can you present yourself, please? You're muted. Você está no mudo.
Oh, agora sim. Obrigada, Iana. Obrigada, Esther. It's nice to see you again. Gianluca, it's the first time, but nice to meet you. Vou fazer a minha apresentação em português. Como a Iana bem disse, chamo-me Ludmila e sou gestora de projetos no Departamento de Empreendedorismo aqui no MOVA. Faço parte da equipa desde 2016 e bom, é sempre um prazer participar de eventos de género onde podemos partilhar as nossas aprendizagens e talvez reforçar o que a Iana disse, né? É espetacular estar conectada com diferentes horários, diferentes fusos. Acredito que vão ser 2 horas muito interessantes. Obrigada, Iana.
Obrigada, thank you, Ludmila. Gianluca?
Hi, everybody. I am Gianluca Nardi. I am the director for Women's Economic Empowerment and Social Inclusion in Strongim Bisnis. Strongim Bisnis is an Australian government initiative in Solomon Islands. I am speaking from Honiara. And it's a market system development program. So it's promoting inclusive growth, but with a very strong focus on women's economic and social inclusion. Just to give a quick context about Solomon Islands. Solomon Islands is a small island state in South Africa. It's at northeast of Australia. There's a small population around 700,000 people, over 1,000 islands. Many of them are very, very small. It's a very scattered population, and it's a very thin market, just to give an idea of where I am talking from.
Thank you, Gianluca. So I'd like to use your segue and ask you, from your experience in Strongim Business with all the entrepreneurship projects that you run, and also with the Women's Economic Empowerment projects, what, in your perspective, are the conditions that ensure higher female participation in this kind of interventions?
Here we are adopting a three-pronged strategy to promote female participation in entrepreneurship programs. So the first strategy is working with local organizations that are promoting entrepreneurship. So there are a few. For instance, there is the Youth Entrepreneurship Council in Solomon Islands, which is a local organization that is running an incubator. It's called Innovation Blue UME. And there is also a local youth organization. This is called Dreamcast. They are promoting entrepreneurship with young people in the field of arts. So we are working with them to, that is not specifically with female, but it's with youth in general. And what we have noticed is that in these programs that are generic in promoting entrepreneurship, the participation of a women entrepreneur is not so high in the first stages, but we have seen that the quality is very high. So the fact that the participation is not very high doesn't mean that the quality is also low. For instance, in the last innovation challenge that we have promoted, over 15 participants. There were only 3 women entrepreneurs, but 2 of them were among the 3 winners. So this is just an interesting observation. The second approach that we are adopting is a sectorial approach. So we have some target sectors, mainly in agriculture, in tourism, timber processing, and we have seen that to maximize women participation, the first thing is working sectors that represent big opportunities for women. For example, horticulture is one of these sectors. Tourism is also very high in the participation of women. We also work in waste management, and there are a number of women organizations that are working in recycling. So there is also a high women participation. And the strategy here is working with lead firms that are owned by women entrepreneurs. So we have seen that when we work with lead firms owned by women, there is normally a very strong willingness for them to work with us to promote women entrepreneurship across along their supply chain. Then the third strategy is working directly with women groups, women associations, and in particular, we are working with saving groups, with networks of women saving groups. This is an entry-level strategy. So we work with saving groups to promote basic financial literacy, basic access to finance. And we are also working with them to promote some basic business development services in terms of training and mentorship. We are also working with an organization that specifically provides business development services for women. It is called Dignity Pacific. We are also working with the Solomon Islands Women in Business Association, which is a little bit higher up in the level. It's no longer entry level, but it's still a transition between the informal sector and the formal sector. So among the different levels in the pyramid.
Nice. Thank you, Gianluca. Esther, I know that GrowthAfrica works with a specific target group and a specific group of entrepreneurs and enterprises. And from your perspective, and from GrowthAfrica's many years of operations, what do you think would be the conditions that ensure a higher female participation in your cohorts and the projects that you run? And also, if you could just explain those target groups and the types of entrepreneurs and enterprises that you work with, I think it would be very helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we have been in this space for close to 20 years, and we have seen it. We have seen women entrepreneurs grow, and I mean, person who leads our organization, our MDs, is a woman, so we're definitely at that alley. However, we do understand that there are a lot of things that have changed along the way, but also a few things that are still needing a bit more intervention. And so just to answer also one of your questions, Iana, we run programs that can be a bit sector focused or can be a bit regional focused, depending on what we're working on, and also different segments. So we can work with young businesses. Currently, we're running a program with indigenous businesses, cottage businesses, what you'd call MSMEs, young people between 18 and 35. But at the same time, we can also run businesses and programs for large tech startups. And you know, that's the new sexy word that everyone wants to use, large tech startups. We also work with them. But our sweet spot, to be honest, are businesses that are trying to scale, so SMEs. As much as the tech startups are growing and they're the ones which are they're pushing the barriers of innovation, we still believe that as a country, there are elements that need to be supported to ensure that our country grows. And this can be done, a lot of it can be done through entrepreneurship. This is education, health, agriculture, finance, right? And some of these definitely will be spurred through entrepreneurship. And so what we feel in our experience in working with some of these programs the past years is that first, women are risk averse. It's not because they want to be risk averse, but because they feel that by the time they put themselves out there, they have so much to lose. So women are always ensuring that if I'm going to get into this, it's going to be the right thing. And even if you look at statistics, you tend to see that women enter less acceleration programs. So you'll find a woman who's joined this acceleration program and she'll join the next one in 5 years. And I'm not saying that the male counterparts go joining each and every different program, but that's just generally how women are putting in their time, because they want to ensure that if they're entering a program, they'll only enter into that, and probably the next time they'll enter in the cycle of their business is a second or third one. Most of the female entrepreneurs we interview, most of them have not been in accelerator programs or even incubation programs or even entrepreneurship programs, to be honest. But either maybe a few have been to one or two, not as male businesses or male counterparts which have been in quite more programs. So that is just one thing we need to put there, that necessarily women are risk averse, not because they're not willing to put in the risk, but because they know that they have limited time in terms of how to build their business. They feel like they have a shorter runway. And so what I feel first, entrepreneurship programs should ensure in putting into to get the right kind of women and the right kind of businesses, especially women-led businesses, is first make the strategy of the program to ensure that it has these women in place. So put a percentage. So we as GrowthAfrica, I know we put in a percentage like up to mostly 30%, because of course we can't put it more than that. But put a percentage and say we are going to target and ensure that we reach 30% of the women who join and should be women. And we strive ensuring that we work to ensure that we're getting 60% to ensure that if there's any attrition rate, we get to that 30%. So I would say that for any innovation program, put a percentage, put yourselves to the mark and actually say, we're going to do this. And at the same time, there are all these activities that need to be done to get female entrepreneurs. They do see them through the networks and everything, but what we've seen and what we've experienced is going on the ground. What we call here is boots on the ground. Go to the ground, go to where those businesses are, find out where they are and try and convince these women to join. These are conditions of how you can get these women in these projects. And at the same time, ensuring that you're creating elements for them to understand and appreciate why the project is good for them. So if you approach a woman and say that, okay, you're just joining a program to grow their business, I mean, they might find it exciting, but if you allure them with the right kind of activities that will help them grow their business, women love programs that will grow their mentorship, their networks, so that they can have larger networks of women who support them. If there's anything, entrepreneurship is a very lonely journey, but entrepreneurship is a lonelier journey for a woman. So create a program where they can be connected to a lot of mentors within the female networks. Because one of the things that entrepreneurs say that it's great seeing when they enter entrepreneurship room or a networking room or with other mentors that they see women, because not necessarily because of anything, but because they know that they understand. They don't need to start explaining certain elements that they already know, right? And that also helps a bit with having the people who are running the project female. I'm not saying that there's bias to try and not to put in male counterparts in this, but as women, we don't need to be explained to certain factors of if you're running a program and the lady who's a founder who runs her business and also is a mother, the care of the family, says that, sorry, I can't join this session because of this and this. There will not be any bias. We'll definitely understand and know that at the same time, women are, they have families and they are the carers of the family. So also creating a bit of flexibility within the programs. And also lastly, just to add on, is to ensure that you're putting specific skills that women might need. Do the research, do needs assessments in advance. Ask them, what do you feel you need in this program? So most of the time we see that women feel like they need negotiation skills, either when they're talking to their clients, their partners, and also when they're fundraising, giving them skills to ensure that they know how to speak in front of investors, in front of financiers. So it's going the extra mile for a lot of these programs to ensure that they're creating an environment where female entrepreneurs can feel that they're actually going to get more than actually what other entrepreneurs are getting. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Esther. I'm sure those lessons are very, very, very rich, and we should learn from GrowthAfrica's experience, 20 years of experience. Ludmila, Imruva has been working mainly with women in entrepreneurship projects, right? So in your view, how does this impact on the level of interest and attendance of the participants?
Obrigada, Iana. Bom, é interessante, né, ver duas perspectivas que de algum momento se assemelham um pouco à nossa realidade e também mostram um pouco das diferenças que existem, não é? Mas falando um pouco da experiência dos projetos de empreendedorismo, talvez dizer que até agora temos dois grandes segmentos de perfis de empreendedoras que trabalham conosco ou que participam dos nossos programas de aceleração. Temos um grupo, por exemplo, que empreende porque precisa desarrascar, não é? É um meio que encontram, a forma que encontram para subsistência das suas famílias. E temos um outro segmento que empreende por escolha. Portanto, tanto para um grupo como para o outro, definir caminhos, estratégias para que haja uma maior participação é extremamente importante. Talvez recuperar o que a Esther acabou de dizer há bocado sobre ir até essas empreendedoras, que é uma ferramenta ou um caminho que nós fazemos questão ou temos lá como passo importante para que efetivamente tenhamos maior participação dessas empreendedoras. Portanto, nós temos uma inclusão de gênero nos nossos processos transversal, desde o tipo de comunicação que a gente traz para fora, em termos de flyers, mensagens, para que elas participem, os meios que a gente usa, tanto de redes sociais, tanto online ou offline. Optamos, por exemplo, também por treinar mobilizadores que fazem um tour pelos bairros para descobrir esses talentos dentro desses bairros ou trazer essas mensagens para essas empreendedoras. Um outro elemento que nós sempre levamos em consideração é que definir um formato que essas empreendedoras possam se sentir confortáveis para participar. Talvez partilhar rapidamente que um dos nossos assim, grandes projetos de sucesso, ele foi implementado logo no início da pandemia, portanto, passamos do presencial para o digital. E para nós interessava muito continuar a trabalhar com essas empreendedoras, portanto, definir estratégias de participação era um super desafio. E isso significava que teríamos de transformar ou sair do presencial para o online. Portanto, houve um cuidado, por exemplo, de ensinar, né, entre aspas, essas mulheres a usarem ferramentas digitais. Nós, como programa, providenciamos ferramentas celulares, né, smartphones básicos, para que essas mulheres efetivamente tivessem oportunidade de participar do nosso projeto de empreendedorismo. Um outro elemento também que eu acho que, para além dessas ferramentas, caminhos ligados à comunicação, ligados a ferramentas para que elas possam ter acesso aos nossos conteúdos, é, acima de tudo, também garantir um espaço seguro, não é? Nós temos metodologias e ferramentas que permitem que essas mulheres, depois de tomarem a decisão de participarem dos nossos programas, que se mantenham, né? Portanto, para além de ter números para participação, é importante que a gente retenha esses números, não é? E há um esforço que é feito propositadamente para que esses números se mantenham. Nos interessa manter sempre a participação dessas mulheres, e para isso também desenvolvemos metodologias. A questão de ter, por exemplo, grupos únicos, né? Só de mulheres empreendedoras, nós sentimos que elas se sentem mais seguras a partilhar as suas necessidades, as suas dores. Há um sentimento de sororidade que existe entre elas, e o fato de verem cá as minhas dores, os meus desafios, as outras empreendedoras também sentem, outras mulheres também sentem, e perceberem que o passo que elas já deram como empreendedoras, mesmo que estejam ainda no setor informal, há outras mulheres que ainda não deram. Portanto, bom, não iria esgotar, não é, todos esses elementos, mas nós sentimos que usar caminhos certos, usar ferramentas de comunicação, treinar as equipas que vão fazer parte desse processo todo, para que tenham esse sentimento acolhedor, para que tenham uma comunicação e que possam ser parceiros dessas empreendedoras, né, no sentido de, ao longo da jornada da aceleração, elas possam sentir que, olha, eu tenho uma equipa que está aqui para apoiar-me. E outra coisa que a Esther disse que também para nós faz muito sentido é esse reconhecimento de que fazer parte de programas de aceleração acaba estando dentro de uma rede, e que fazer parte de uma rede há um grande potencial de reduzir as barreiras e também atingir outras oportunidades, né? Tanto ligado a finanças, mercados e por aí fora. Então, Iana, eu basicamente poderia dizer isso, né? Só para não esgotar, tendo em conta que vamos ter uma outra hora para aprofundar um pouco mais as nossas aprendizagens.
Thank you, Ludmila. I would like to actually continue with you and move forward to another question, if that's all right. Move has been supporting micro, small and medium enterprises, as you just explained, led by female entrepreneurs for a couple of years now. And a question that always raised in our minds was, by supporting them, are we able to observe any impact on job creation or on the entrepreneurs' livelihoods? And I would like to hear from you if you have any thoughts or the results you have observed in terms of job creation and entrepreneurs' livelihoods improvement.
Obrigada, Iana. Sim, graças a Deus. E graças também a um trabalho de equipa, de pesquisa. Bom, talvez só partilhar que quase em todas as nossas intervenções nós temos um acompanhamento ligado à monitoria, avaliação e aprendizagem, o que de certa forma nos permite ver onde é que estamos, como é que podemos melhorar, como é que podemos acertar, etc. e tal. Então, em relação aos resultados das nossas intervenções, sim, tivemos. Posso partilhar assim dos 3 ciclos que nós tivemos aqui em Maputo, de um programa de aceleração para micronegócios. Mais de 70% desses negócios tiveram um crescimento das suas empresas, e isso, por exemplo, resultou do fato delas começarem a olhar para as finanças, de começarem a fazer os registros dos seus rendimentos. Um outro elemento que nos ajudou a alcançar esses resultados em termos de crescimento é um pouco da componente de pesquisa, né? Todas as nossas abordagens são guiadas pela pesquisa Human Centered Design. Portanto, que não só olha para a componente dos produtos e serviços, como também para as operações dos próprios negócios. E deixa-me dizer, Iana, que esses resultados, tanto a nível de crescimento dos negócios, tanto a nível de criação e geração de emprego, de criação de novos produtos, de inovação, tanto nos serviços, nos produtos, como também nas operações, surgiram através dos rendimentos ou da análise sistemática das suas finanças. Diferente de alguns outros programas, nas nossas intervenções, nós não temos nenhum tipo de subsídio ou grants para essas empresas. A ideia é que elas possam se nutrir de ferramentas e uma autoconfiança, primeiro assumirem que elas são empreendedoras, que o que estão a fazer pode gerar renda, pode gerar oportunidades. Portanto, é um mix, um equilíbrio, né, que eu diria, de competências transversais e habilidades técnicas. Portanto, há um trabalho muito ligado à agência, à autoconfiança, em elas assumirem que são empreendedoras, em paralelo, olharem para as finanças, tomarem decisões baseadas naquilo que são os rendimentos, não é? E em cima disso, verem oportunidades de atingirem novos clientes, de atingirem novos mercados, e em cima disso, como resultado, começam a vir mais rendimentos, mais clientes e, claro, aquela autoconfiança que faz toda a diferença. Portanto, sim, nós acreditamos que as nossas intervenções, temos evidências em cima disso, que trazem uma melhoria nos meios de subsistência, não só para as famílias dessas empreendedoras, mas também para a comunidade onde elas estão inseridas. Outro grande elemento que a gente faz a nível de criação de emprego é que nós encorajamos essas empreendedoras que deem oportunidades a jovens, mulheres em particular, para que possam dar um espaço dentro das suas empresas, como estagiárias, como aprendizes, olharem, por exemplo, para toda a cadeia do valor, quais são as potencialidades de eu engajar alguém da família, um jovem da família ou uma jovem da família dentro do bairro. Portanto, é um processo doloroso, algumas vezes, mas que, olhando todas as ferramentas e com esse acompanhamento ligado à monitoria e avaliação, nos permitiu alcançar resultados positivos dos negócios que participaram, bem como também das empreendedoras.
Thank you, Ludmila. Gianluca, do you think, in your experience in Strongim business, have you seen any job creation results, or have you seen the livelihoods of the women entrepreneurs you support improving while implementing the project?
Yes, we haven't fully assessed the program yet, so we don't have data for all of these interventions, and some of them are quite recent. But for the entry-level women entrepreneurs we work with WARA, so all of them are in the rural areas and the informal sector. So we have seen that there is a substantial rate of improvement in their livelihoods according to the impact assessment that we have made. In this case, it is mainly due to the fact that women who didn't have any access to finance, or they didn't have any access to financial education. For the first time, they had the possibility to have some support to start and develop their business, and in general, their improvement in income and livelihoods has been quite substantial. In the case of the other programs, we are still waiting. For instance, the programs that we have done with YEXI, the young entrepreneurs. But it's interesting maybe to mention the strategy that we have adopted to make sure that there is a higher rate of success in the new businesses. The new businesses are normally very risky. A very small percentage normally has success. It's like in the startup sectors. So the first thing that we want to make sure that happens when we work with them is that it's a good business idea. So we want to help women to put together an idea that works in terms of access to market, of their demand, in terms of having a valid proposition compared to competitors. So there is an initial phase where we really want to make sure that the business idea works. And after that, we work in the whole ecosystem of entrepreneurship. So it's about the startup, but it's about providing the right business development services. And it's about also creating the right enabling environment for women. What we have seen is that, especially in the rural areas, there is a lot of pressure for women from the family, from the extended family, in general, from the community. Many of the extended family sometimes want to have goods and services and pay after a very long time, or sometimes they don't pay. There is a very strong pressure also to give the money from the business to attend needs of the communities where they are, or weddings or funerals. So sometimes women who start to be successful entrepreneurs are really under a very big pressure from the community that makes everything much more difficult. So I think that it's also very important to work not only with women, but with the whole community, sometimes with the family. So in some cases, we have seen that it's effective to work with couples. It's important the sensitization that is also made for the family and the whole community. So this sort of gender awareness and working with the whole community is an important program of the trainings and the workshops and all the activities that we are doing at a different level of the entrepreneurship ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you, Gianluca. Esther, on this matter of job creation, I know this is an important thing to GrowthAfrica, to GrowthAfrica cohorts and business acceleration programs. What can you tell us that in terms of impact that you have seen in the last years in GrowthAfrica that works when you're supporting small and medium companies in Kenya and also in other African countries that you ran programs in?
Yeah, thank you for that. I think my fellow panelists have spoken quite a bit on this. However, we have had a few programs that we've been able to work with MSMEs. And you see, for us, when we call them MSMEs in this, in our context in Kenya, we do call them, this is more or less the informal sector, or what would call the cottage industry. And to be honest, this industry is very large. It's very large, and one of the biggest activities that have been done in the past in terms of running different projects, but currently we're running a project on that, is to ensure that when the businesses are growing, they understand the importance of first growing and growing the right way. So in our past, we'll be able to see that if you intervene with some of these MSMEs and more or less supporting them to grow, and creating jobs along the way. So of course, definitely for them, it helps them because, you know, once you grow your business, once you have a bigger market, bigger customers, you need to employ more people. But also, once in that intervention of speaking to some of these SMEs, it's important to also put in place that they also need to hire women, right? And not just because they need to tick a box, but because also there's been studies where businesses or organizations or MSMEs that actually have women and an inclusive kind of working environment, they actually grow faster. Because as much as men definitely have their own way of working, they will learn a lot from women and vice versa. So it grows at the same time. So women, as they're working, they improve their skills, at the same time teach their male counterparts on skills that they're good at, which is mostly because women can be very precise on how they work, and they're very detailed. They have empathetic skills. They build a community, especially businesses that are grounded within the community. Women are very essential. But also one thing that has been important as well is also creating decent jobs. You know, in the standard of ILO, ensuring that these jobs include 20 hours a week and $2 a day. So also making sure that businesses move away from, I mean, there's the casuals, which are great, but as much as you're creating casuals, it's also creating full-time jobs. Full-time jobs where people do not need to necessarily just work on casual opportunities that come day by day. They're not sure that the next day they'll get jobs. So the intervention needs to start from the beginning, but at the same time, it's gradual. So over the past, we've been able to see a lot of businesses, if you ensure that you have this intervention from the get-go, that for them to grow, they need more people. But also as they intervene and create more jobs, they need to create also decent jobs. That way you'll get to see a lot of businesses, and in our past, we've seen a lot of businesses grow and get the right skills. So I think that, yeah, that's what I can add on that for also adding on to what Ludmila and Gianluca have also added.
Thank you, Esther. And as a segue to this question, I wanted to continue with you and hear from you about the importance of tailoring the business support you provide depending on the target group. So you said that you usually work with one target group, specific, but also in different contexts. And even in Kenya, sometimes you work with those like more micro informal entrepreneurs. So in your experience, do you think it's important to tailor the business support you provide depending on this target group? And do you think it's even more important when working with female entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, it's very important. When this whole spur of entrepreneurship programs came in, it really started on the SMEs. It started on people, more or less businesses who have like more or less 50 to maybe 100 employees, or maybe 20 to 50. But there was a lack, there was a gap that was left behind, and this was the MSMEs. And I mean, there's amazing intervention that was done before with shop programs that necessarily was not put into place. But we're so glad in this day and age, in the past 5-10 years, there have been more interventions from funders to actually say that this program is specifically for youth 18-35 and 40% have to be women. It's important for that to happen, because if we do not support these interventions, we will lose out on those amazing creations and amazing entrepreneurs who we could have had from those women and men. It's just very simple, because if we do not support women and young people to grow within their businesses and to grow within their entrepreneurship skills, we will lose a generation of our next industrialization. It's as simple as that. The importance is that as much as we have businesses who we think are great, who have probably been there for 7 to 10 years, we also have our role to play to support the businesses that have been there for 2 years. Because at the same time, as much as there's all this technology around us, there's all this revolution around us and support, they still need further support to get there. And if there are more interveners, we are more in this space now, it's important for each and every one of us to ensure that we are taking up that space and supporting them. Simply because young people, recently we're running a program for young people and we're interviewing them. And when you ask them, say, why are you doing this? They're like, first, it's their passion. This is the cottage industry. They're doing metal fabrication, food processing, simple, making peanut butter, making honey. And you ask them, why are you doing this? They're like, first, I need to put food on my table. Second, I'm tired of seeing other young people struggling to get a job as I am. So if we support young people, women as well, because women also grow the community. If you've ever seen women within the community will always be ready to help someone else. If they have more, they'll always be ready to support and feed somewhere else. So if you're supporting these women and these young businesses to actually scale their businesses, automatically will have more jobs. Automatically, the livelihoods and incomes of the people around them will automatically grow. So I think that's the importance of that. If we want to see nations grow, if we want to see communities grow, support young people, support women entrepreneurs. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you, Esther. I'm a bit conscious of time here, and there are a lot of questions, I think, posed by Natalie. So I just wanted to, and as we have another hour to speak about Mover projects, Gianluca, do you want to contribute or to add something around tailoring the contents of the projects you deliver, depending on the target group, or should we move to the questions posed by Natalie?
Maybe just very quickly adding that for us, it's very, very different to work urban versus rural and entry-level versus established entrepreneurs. They are completely different contexts that require very different strategies. Maybe I will just leave it here.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Maybe Natalie, I see you have a lot of questions here. I'll read the first two, and I think this is for Ludmila, apparently, about Mover. What is the process? So the first question is, what is the process for building this self-confidence? What inputs were brought to the women? And regarding the safe space that we have, you have spoken about, the idea seems key, but in some cases, some women in a collective space are also rivals. Therefore, some of these women do not fully participate because they try to protect themselves. Have you encountered this kind of problems? I believe Mover has a lot of experience on this, but Gianluca also has in your projects, right? So maybe Ludmila, you could begin with a short answer to these questions, and we can move forward to Gianluca as well.
Obrigada, Iana. Obrigada, Natalie. Bom, são 3 perguntas, mas eu só talvez a primeira sobre como é que a gente constrói a questão da autoconfiança, para mim acaba estando muito relacionada com a questão do espaço seguro, tendo em conta essa questão da rivalidade, porque esse sentimento de existência de rivalidade entre as mulheres resulta muito da questão da falta de autoconfiança. Portanto, para nós, ter um espaço seguro, onde temos grupos exclusivamente de mulheres, é extremamente poderoso, diferente de ter grupos mistos. Por quê? Porque elas começam a reconhecer que muitas das fraquezas e também das suas fortalezas, outras mulheres têm. Então, a ideia é que tenhamos um espaço de partilha honesta, onde cada uma faz uma análise e partilha também as suas experiências. Portanto, há um espaço de grande valorização de experiências individuais e também de um reconhecimento de um problema que não só afeta uma, mas também afeta a outra, a nível de questões ligadas a normas sociais e também um pouco mais do ecossistema, né? Acesso à informação, o tipo de políticas que existem. Portanto, quando elas começam a reconhecer o poder que elas têm, pessoal e o poder que elas têm ao se juntar às outras mulheres, e que essa questão da rivalidade também resulta de um processo de socialização e também da construção dos papéis sociais, automaticamente começa a não existir. Nas primeiras sessões, essas questões são muito levantadas, que as mulheres são rivais, que eu não posso trazer estagiários no meu trabalho porque vão copiar a minha ideia. Portanto, a ideia desse espaço seguro é trazer essas discussões e tentarmos compreender qual é a raiz desse problema, não é? E trazemos várias experiências individuais, experiências coletivas, que através de algumas sessões, né, nós, num dos projetos de empreendedorismo, chamamos isso como grupos temáticos, né? Onde de forma honesta nós debatemos essas questões e que durante esses 4 ciclos de implementação tem resultado, não só a nível do programa de aceleração para microempresas, como também para outro projeto para mulheres ligadas ao setor informal, mais de venda de produtos perecíveis nos mercados aqui na zona urbana. Eu poderia levar 1 hora a tentar explicar, mas achei interessante, né, a forma como foi colocada a pergunta, porque o processo de construção da autoconfiança é que vai fazer com que estereótipos ligados à rivalidade e à competição acabam sendo eliminados, pelo menos nos grupos nos quais nós trabalhamos. Espero ter tentado responder a pergunta da Nathalie.
Thank you, Ludmila. And also, if you can, we can extend a little bit the panel to respond to those very interesting questions, as we have another hour to talk about the movie. I don't know if Gianluca can, because it's quite late there, but maybe would be nice to hear from you, Gianluca, also on the rural context. What do you think about those questions?
Yes, regarding the safe space, it has been very useful for us to work with saving groups. So that with women saving groups, that has been a very good platform to work on women's agency and try to build this kind of networking, but also this platform where women can talk safely about their issues among themselves. Regarding working with couples, it's not incompatible with women's empowerment in our experience. The main strategy to bring men and the whole family on board, supporting women entrepreneurs, is the fact that it is really in everybody's interest when women are successful in their business. So it's something that brings more wealth and prosperity to the whole family. And working, there are a number of men that are also supporting of their wives or female family members, and we work with these men to be champions, so to build to have a sounding board of this kind of experience, and show how the whole family lives in a better way when this support happens. In parallel, it's also important to have a work of sensitization to make sure that women actually have a voice in the family, that can make the relevant decisions regarding their business, so that they also enjoy the fruit of their business and their income, so that the power of making decisions and spending this money not taken away from them. So working this kind of work of sensitization and empowerment can go hand in hand. There are different opinions, actually. There are women saving groups, and there are saving groups that work with couples, and they are promoted by different organizations. It's very difficult to say which one is more successful. There are two strategies, and each of them has
Thank you, Gianluca. We lost you on the last second, but I think.
Okay. I was saying that there are different organizations adopting the different approaches, either working only with women or working with the couples and the family. And there is, I don't have a position in saying which strategy is the best one. I think each strategy has its own merits.
So Natalie has another question on specifically on the couples in the couples strategy, right? I don't know if you think you have answer to this or you want to add something, but specifically about the discourse on women's empowerment, how do you speak about women's empowerment when working with couples, if I understand correctly the question?
Yeah, one very important element of working with couples is about time management. So one of the big barriers for women entrepreneurs is time poverty, the fact that there is a lot of expectation and the pressure from the family around all the unpaid care work inside the family. So working also with the male and make them aware of the importance of supporting their wives or sometimes their sisters or daughters, and share the unpaid care work is a very important element that can ease quite a lot of burden from women entrepreneurs if successful. And the other one is the importance of making the whole family understanding a conjoined decision-making process. So working with the whole family around understanding the difference between making a decision in a conjoint way or in an unilateral way, and trying to impose it on others, and what are the benefits of a conjoint decision-making process rather the other way. So time management and conjoint decision-making are two very important elements of the couples curriculum. And then there are a number of other elements about sensitization sensitization in general. So understanding the gender roles and how these gender roles are imposed, or how these gender roles can also become more flexible, and how men can start to undertake tasks that normally are seen as women tasks. Not necessarily. There are the ways of like opening the discourse about that, and bringing men to be more flexible, and women to understand more and be more aware of their strength and their rights, and bringing this this kind of discourse inside the family is very useful.
Thank you. Those are quite interesting and useful insights, actually. There's a last question. I don't know if you can stay a little longer. I think this one would be to Esther. What are the results in terms of decent jobs creation, and to what extent the women entrepreneurs enter in formalization processes?
Okay. For women, so women entrepreneurs really, really go quite fast. So those who really want to go into formalizing their businesses, they do it quite fast. And just as Gianluca mentioned something about women groups and circles, women groups and circles have really revolutionized entrepreneurship in a very different element. And some of the times women necessarily don't even need to start their businesses on their own. They actually start them through women groups, to be honest. And it's very exciting because in our experience in Kenya, a lot of these things have been made easier for, there's been an ease of business strategy in ensuring that registration is not very hard. We have e-portals that are very fast. So, and formalizing is not really the problem. If we actually go around even down to the grassroots, cottage businesses, the informal sector, if you ask them, are they registered? Most of them are. In fact, we were scouting for a program recently for young people and women, and literally 90% of them were registered. And this is the informal sector. So the issue is not really registering, but the issue is now what to do next. Kenyans have this very entrepreneurial culture where they always they just register a business waiting for the next thing to happen. So formalization processes are in place. However, if it's the next step, if they've actually worked on their businesses, that's where everything comes into play, because they need, the right kind of support, whether it's from the community, whether it's from other individuals. They need the right kind of support to center their businesses. So formalization is in place, if I may answer that question. In terms of the results in terms of decent jobs creation, I think that is still being done, because like some of the projects even we're in, it's being done by multi-players, up to like 9 different players like us. And this is actually a mandate by the Ministry of Industrialization. So the government is in play in this, because it is a target to try and create decent jobs within a certain year. So I might not be able to answer that. However, there are many interventions to ensure that the jobs that are being created are decent, because the number of youth in the country, I mean, there's no other way just to ensure that the decent jobs are created. So the numbers, I necessarily can't say the results on that. However, the interventions are there. The interventions are heavily in place, and all the way up from government. Of course, some of these things cannot be traced all the way to the rural. And this is all the way till casual labor. Whether if you're getting someone to be part of your household to work for you or casuals, there are policies that are being put in place. And of course, it is very hard to more or less govern them. But that's when the community is being called into play to be part of the conversation, to ensure that if it's not even decent jobs, it's ensuring that benefits are being put into play, that the health policies, you've taken health policies for your casuals, you've taken more or less the pension NSF for them. So the structures have been put in place, but now it's to see whether in the results we can be able to get that. And hopefully these are the numbers we can get next year through certain interventions that have been put in place. I'm sorry, I cannot give you the right answer for that one.
Thank you, Esther. Magali, over to you.
All right, well, many thanks to our panelists for the insights that you've shared during this hour. And thank you as well to you, Iana, for facilitating such an interesting discussion. We will now shift gears a little bit and prepare for the second part of our event. So we will take a brief 5-minute break, and then we will zoom in on Mova's work on entrepreneurship through a presentation by Iana and Ludmila, and then a question and answer session. So if you would like to join us for the second half of the event, please stay on the same link. We'll just take a brief 5-minute break, and then we'll be right back to continue the discussion.
Thank you, Magali. Thank you so much, Esther and Gianluca. It was a pleasure to facilitate this conversation, and was really nice to have you all here. I hope you can stay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Very nice to meet all of you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Ludmila, we see each other in a bit.
All right, well, welcome back, everyone. For the second part of today's event, as mentioned, Iana and Ludmila will present in greater detail about Mova's specific initiatives working with female entrepreneurs, and they will also share some lessons from Mova's experience. So over to you, Iana and Ludmila.
Thank you, Magali. So in the second hour, we'll take a deeper look into Mova's learnings on female entrepreneurship, and also discuss some key takeaways from 2 Mova projects. I hope you still have energy for another productive hour of learnings. And if you have any questions, please raise your hand and we'll open your microphone so you can pose the question and we can answer. Can you put the presentation on? Yeah, exactly. Thank you. If you could please move to the next slide. Yeah. Okay, so please meet Tika Daigi. I love her. She has really funny videos on Instagram if you want to check out. I really recommend. And she's a fashion icon in Canada. She's quite glamorous, isn't she? I think you'll agree with me that we cannot say that all the Yis are also as glamorous as Tika, right? I like to make this analogy because female entrepreneurship seems to have become a kind of very posh silver bullet and used as a glamorous status in some development and private sector circles. But for many women working as an entrepreneur in the global South is the result of poverty, of exclusion and lack of choice, as opposed to a conscious career move where being an entrepreneur may mean low pay, insecure working conditions, and general lack of other options, basically. So it's not very productive to call every female entrepreneurship project the same, because it might mean putting the small-scale informal sector female trader that sells produce on the side of the road in the same bucket as the female executives driving high-tech innovative companies. And as we saw in the last hour, there are plenty of different target groups and different projects that address different issues and support different sizes and types of businesses, either in the rural areas or even in very different countries and contexts. Some companies are more structured and more formal, have more employees, so they obviously need different kinds of support. Can you move to the next slide, please? So, Ludmila, I think you want to add to this slide. You're muted.
Ok, obrigada, Iana. Bom, eu vou continuar a fazer a minha intervenção em português. Sim, tenho, não muito, porque acredito que conseguiste trazer os pontos essenciais, né, nessa discussão. Será que quando falamos de mulheres empreendedoras, falamos efetivamente das que conhecemos nas redes sociais, no Instagram, e na verdade não é. Eu acho que no caso específico de Moçambique, né, a questão da assimetria é uma beleza, né? Esse mosaico que existe ao longo do nosso país, efetivamente não nos permite colocar todas as empreendedoras no mesmo segmento, né? E não só a nível de perfil, mas como também a nível de heterogeneidade, a nível dos setores. E, portanto, uma das coisas que nos permite, como organização, levar em consideração aspectos de género ligados à idade, geografia, experiência, tal como apresentamos aqui no slide, é que a nossa intervenção, as nossas abordagens estão sempre centradas na pessoa. Qualquer intervenção que a gente pretende fazer ou tomar, nós sempre fazemos essa análise e tentamos sempre ter em conta que não estamos a falar de uma mesma pessoa. Se mudamos para uma geografia diferente, tentamos perceber quem é essa empreendedora, quais são os desafios que as mesmas enfrentam, questões ligadas à literacia. Posso dar um exemplo bem específico da nossa intervenção de programas de aceleração em Maputo. Não são as mesmas formas, a abordagem diferente quando migramos para o norte do país. Portanto, sim, é uma questão que é importante que outras organizações, ao tentarem trazer intervenções ligadas a empreendedorismo feminino, levarem isso em consideração e estudarem melhor como é que essas abordagens podem ser melhor sucedidas, não colocando todas as empreendedoras numa caixa.
Thank you. So what you're saying is that it's actually worth it, impact-wise, to acknowledge the intersectionality of gender and the huge range of social identities that influence women's status, access to information, etc., and their ability to succeed as entrepreneurs, right? If I
Não, com certeza, é indispensável tomar isso em consideração. E é um pouco o que nós falamos na hora passada, né? A questão de tomar a perspectiva de género transversal em todas as abordagens e intervenções.
Can you move to the next slide, please?
Temos que passar para outro slide, próximo slide. Ok. Bom, talvez dando um pouco mais de continuidade, né? Acabamos trazendo elementos desse slide, o qual mesmo efetivamente é importante olharmos a fundo, né? Quando falamos de empreendedorismo feminino em África e em particular em Moçambique. Bom, estudos afirmam, né, que uma em quatro mulheres tem um negócio em África. Muitas, como já foi dito aqui, por questões de sobrevivência, parece que meio que um instinto natural, não é? E isso é transversal quase em toda a parte da África. No caso específico de Moçambique, mesmo que muitas mulheres de alguma forma façam algum tipo de negócio, algum tipo de business, a questão do ser formal ou informal está muito bem assente e pode ser até discutida com uma perspectiva de género, não é? Como é que parte dos negócios formalizados são constituídos ou são liderados por homens, e isso é um aspecto que nós como MOVA levamos muito em consideração e sabemos do quanto o número de barreiras que existem, né, para que efetivamente mulheres possam de alguma forma formalizar os seus negócios, e isso está muito relacionado, ou isso está devido, por exemplo, à forma como a economia em Moçambique está estruturada. Não é? Nós surgimos de um sistema socialista, comunista, para um capitalismo meio que imposto, não é? E todas as pessoas na altura que tinham acesso a criar empresas, foi meio que uma coisa herdada, né, do colono, do sistema que existia atualmente. E nós sabemos que naquele contexto, parte das pessoas que estavam nos processos de tomada de decisão eram constituídos maioritariamente por homens, e isso vem se alastrando até hoje, não é? Quase 20, 30 anos depois, nós assistimos que a nossa economia, da forma como está organizada e estruturada, de alguma forma impede, né, ou faz com que as mulheres permaneçam no sistema informal. Um outro elemento, Iana, que eu acho que seria interessante trazer era, embora pode até parecer repetitivo, né, a questão das normas sociais, né, ligadas à reprodução, ligado a práticas e códigos de comportamento, né, em vários contextos sociais. Se formos olhar para a região norte, que é maioritariamente constituída pela dominada pela religião islâmica, nós sabemos como é que alguns preceitos religiosos são geridos, né? E como isso pode, de alguma forma, limitar o desenvolvimento da carreira a nível de negócio das mulheres. E, por exemplo, o fato também de maior parte das vezes as mulheres são frequentemente desfavorecidas para terem acesso, por exemplo, ou a terem acesso à educação, e faz com que tenham menos competências a nível de experiência profissional, acesso e controle às finanças, aos bens, propriedades, etc. Portanto, falamos, por exemplo, de questões ligadas à mobilidade, não é? No centro urbano, talvez a gente não perceba muito essas dinâmicas, mas a nível rural, quando saímos um pouco mais para o interior, sabemos que as mulheres, para se locomoverem de um lado para o outro, precisam de ter a autorização ou do pai, do marido, de alguém na família. Portanto, são vários elementos que, de alguma forma, fazem com que muitas mulheres permaneçam ainda no informal. E uma vez elas já no informal, enfrentam muitos constrangimentos e que fazendo com que elas continuem a operar em negócios pequenos, a terem renda e produtividade ainda muito reduzidos e pouco rentáveis, diferente, por exemplo, dos homens, não é? Porque o acesso à informação, né, o fato delas não conhecerem, por exemplo, algumas vantagens, o que significa, por exemplo, tornar o meu negócio formal e que tipo de oportunidades eu posso ter acesso, faz com que efetivamente elas permaneçam ainda na informalidade. Gostavas de acrescentar, Iana?
Não, Thank you. I just wanted to use what you just said as a segue to the next slide, which will be which will begin to look into movers' learnings and frameworks, and just to say that all those contexts and gender constraints and also gender norms need to be at the core and need to be considered when developing and designing these entrepreneurship projects and entrepreneurship interventions. They cannot be overlooked. And this is something we tested and we learned in the last years of work. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Okay, so can you move back? Yes, thank you. So during the last years, Mover developed this what we call the Entrepreneurship Pyramid, which is a framework focused on capturing the heterogeneity of the entrepreneurial landscape in Mozambique, and also a framework that enables us to identify and focus on our target group of marginalized women. And if we don't understand the specificities of each of these target groups, there is a risk of failing to support the most marginalized ones, which usually are the hardest to reach, or the ones that never or very are very unlikely to receive support because they don't fit in any boxes. So this frameworks illustrates the characteristics of those different target groups based on their ability to generate a living wage, to grow in a sustainable manner, and also to create jobs to others as being enterprises or entrepreneurs, leaders. So at the bottom of the pyramid, these two first layers, we find is where we find the majority of women and young people trying to do business in Mozambique, either youth with few other economic opportunities that fall into entrepreneurship because it's the option they have, or women hidden in the informal sector, often selling perishable consumer goods in an effort to generate a living to support their families. And here, a focus on perishable consumer goods is important because it's very common for women doing business and women in the bottom of the pyramid, because they perishable goods are cheap, they therefore require less capital investment, and given that these goods are cheaper to buy and cheaper to retail as opposed to non-perishable goods such as oil or rice, they of course require more investment and they are harder to put in market to those women. So yeah, so those are the two layers on the bottom of the pyramid here. So moving forward to the next level up, those three next layers here, these are the micro, small, and medium enterprises, which is a very heterogeneous group, quite often put in the same bucket. A caveat here is that there are many ways to slice this cake. We slice it like this because we are interested in where the majority of women entrepreneurs are, and we are also ultimately interested in supporting marginalized people to access labor, to improve their livelihoods, and therefore we divide this group in three. Ludmila, do you want to speak? Do you want to say anything? No?
Não, sorry, não houve um probleminha técnico aqui, mas já está.
So at the bottom of this chunk, we can find what we call the one-woman band businesses, the hairdressers, the catering businesses, the sellers of like handmade goods, craft goods. And what we have observed is that from a professional perspective, they tend to have an entrepreneurial mindset of like proactivity and productivity, but they lack the skills and the opportunities to show their potential and to like take the leap and move forward and grow their businesses and move forward in their careers. The second category here, or the small and medium-sized companies that employ more than 5 people, which are mostly led by men, as we saw previously in the presentation. And these entrepreneurs tend to be in business for like a longer time and are the ones that provide most of the jobs in the country. And unfortunately, too often those jobs are informal and sometimes undecent ones. So improving the productivity of those businesses could translate into more decent jobs available, more opportunities, create actually more jobs. So therefore, this group, although mainly have like male entrepreneurs, is also a focus to mover because of the potential of job creation and because of the potential of improving the jobs offered by those companies. And the third category here, high up in the pyramid, is what we call often like entrepreneurs with external supports, the usual suspects, the companies led by very well-connected entrepreneurs leading startups or accessing opportunities such as networks and finance. And usually those companies are very few and usually not necessarily creating many jobs. So very often they are targeted by entrepreneurship interventions, which make a very good job supporting them, and therefore they are not a focus to move them. And at the very top here, we have the large companies, which employ more than 100 employees and provide very formal jobs. We work with them in our labor insertion portfolio, both through helping them to absorb the vulnerable youth that we work with and through improving their organizational culture to be more diverse and inclusive, but we don't support these companies to grow through entrepreneurship support or to improve their profits directly. So can you move to the next slide, please? So Mover's entrepreneurship portfolio is composed by approaches that are built on this framework that we just saw, tailoring the different interventions to the specifics of each target group that we work with, and using methodologies that can build on local realities, mainly listening to and responding to the voices and concerns raised by women, and also being flexible and adaptive in order to meet their needs. The objective of the projects in the portfolio are often focused on the entrepreneur personal development and on business growth. So the content is often built on a mix of business skills, business practices, soft skills for entrepreneurship. And we often, as Ludmila was saying, we often include a specific gender lens depending on the target group. So on this, for some projects more focused on the entrepreneurs in the bottom of the pyramid, we focus on the personal development, self-confidence, personal initiative. And on the other hand, for projects focused on, for instance, focused on more structured enterprises, we prefer to focus our gender lens on power relations within the companies and how this can undermine business productivity and growth. If you can move to the next slide, please. So we'd like to talk about two case studies from Mover that are quite different between themselves and that put a very real color into all those concepts and frameworks and ideas that we just share with you. So the first case study is Mover Mais, Mover Plus, that worked with the female traders selling perishable goods in informal markets. The approach is a 9-week group training intercalated by 9 weeks of one-to-one mentoring sessions. It's a bundled approach that combines self-efficacy skills, business training, financial literacy, and the opportunity to open a bank account. Can you move to the next slide, please? So what we saw in this project is that the results were very outstanding. So overall, the businesses more than tripled their profits. And although the sample is small and further research is needed, we actually did a control group in cycle 2 that backed the results we had. And I'd like to, well, we saw impact in business competencies, in business practices, and profits, as I said. But an interesting result is this, what we say here about the ability to pay themselves a salary, to pay the entrepreneurs a salary. When we were designing Mover Plus, we wanted to test whether it was possible to implement a very common best practice in more structured enterprises, which is treating the entrepreneur or the owner of the business as an employee of the business, especially for the business accounting system. So when you attend to SMEs training, this is one of the first lessons, right? You need to separate the owner or the entrepreneur personal account from the business account, and you need to be able to pay the owner's salary. So in terms of accounting, this is important because you know how much the business is actually spending. And somehow what we saw when we were reviewing the literature is that this kind of practice wasn't being applied to household enterprises or to very micro enterprises, informal traders, and etc. So we wanted to test, why it wasn't being implemented, and also if it worked. Well, it worked very well, and it was very important. And it actually went, this specific focus went a step further and taught us a different lesson. Not only paying themselves a salary was important for them to be able to organize themselves and their businesses, it was really empowering. I'll never forget this quote in one of our reflections from a participant that said, "I never thought I was worth it to deserve receiving a salary." So this is really strong, right? How come you never thought you were worth it? And we never thought the word salary and using this very simple technique of like accounting technique would actually have this kind of impact. So this became something that we include in all our entrepreneurship projects because it's quite powerful in terms of gender and also very important in terms of business practices. So Ludmila, over to you to speak about PAM.
Obrigada, Iana. Ok. Obrigada, Iana, por essa partilha daquilo que foi a nossa intervenção com o Mova Mais. Agora eu vou partilhar um pouco do nosso programa de aceleração desenhado para pequenas e médias empresas. Bom, em termos de público-alvo, a Iana bem explicou, não é? Quando apresentou a nossa tabela, a nossa pirâmide. Para nós foi extremamente importante ter essa distinção a nível de perfis muito claro, que era para efetivamente a nossa abordagem em termos de conteúdos fizesse necessária e pertinente para esse público. Portanto, o nosso programa, embora tenha assim um aspecto um pouco mais moderno e tal, mas é especificamente para aquelas empreendedoras que não têm acesso a este tipo de iniciativas, que não participam em espaços como programas de aceleração, formações, workshops ligados ao empreendedorismo feminino. Portanto, o PAM foi desenhado de propósito mesmo para esse segmento. Normalmente são mulheres empreendedoras nas zonas periurbanas da cidade de Maputo, é o exemplo, né, o estudo de caso que eu vou trazer cá, embora atualmente estejamos também a implementar na cidade de Pemba, e traz consigo componentes essenciais, né? Uma perspectiva em termos de implementação, não é? Onde desenvolvemos um modelo de negócio sensível ao género, com grande componente ligada ao Human Centered Design, que em paralelo foi desenvolvida uma pesquisa de abordagem. Nós, acima de tudo, pretendíamos com isso fazer que houvesse uma melhoria a nível dos produtos e serviços e nas operações dentro desses negócios. Importa referir que a primeira implementação do PAM foi logo no princípio da Covid-19, quando estávamos a receber os primeiros casos, portanto, houve aí uma necessidade de continuarmos a atender este público específico, portanto, desenhamos um pacote da nossa intervenção que combinava 3 bootcamps, que foram desenhados para serem presenciais, mas tivemos que adaptar todos eles para um formato online, um suporte individual intensivo e, como eu disse há um bocado, uma pesquisa de mercado que pudesse trazer esses inputs em cima dos negócios. Outra coisa que talvez seria importante partilhar a nível da nossa intervenção com o PAM é que, enquanto em Moçambique, no mundo, havia um movimento de fechamento das empresas, muitas empresas entraram em crise, etc. e tal. Parte dos nossos negócios, quase todas as participantes, continuaram com os seus negócios ativos, graças a muitos resultados da componente do HCD, que fez com que muitas empreendedoras pudessem digitalizar os seus negócios e que olhassem para a componente digital como a oportunidade de crescimento dos seus negócios, como a oportunidade de acessar a outro tipo de mercados e também a outros clientes e inovarem nos seus negócios, a forma de entrega, no processo de produção. Muitas, pela primeira vez, por exemplo, aderiram a serviços de entrega, o que também não só permitiu que o ciclo de produção não parasse, como pudessem dar oportunidades de emprego a outras mulheres, a outros jovens, através desses serviços de entrega. Portanto, em forma geral, a nossa jornada de aceleração combina isso, né? 3 bootcamps online, acompanhados de um suporte individual intensivo e 2 pesquisas de mercado que estavam muito voltadas para o aprimoramento das operações e também na inovação nos produtos e nos serviços. Vou pedir para passar para o próximo slide. Ok, uma jornada de 3 meses, combinada dos 3 elementos que eu partilhei essencialmente e que em termos de resultados tivemos, no geral, quase 72% das participantes conseguiram implementar os resultados da pesquisa, talvez tentar fundamentar um pouco, né? No nosso processo de seleção, todas as participantes ou potenciais participantes passam por um processo de testes de literacia e numeracia. Como eu disse, a ideia é que os conteúdos que foram criados possam atender às expectativas e que, acima de tudo, elas também possam absorver aquilo que seriam os insights, tanto da pesquisa como também dos bootcamps. Portanto, e acredito que essa componente ligada aos testes de literacia, para que tivéssemos um grupo mais ou menos homogéneo em níveis de percepção, fez com que a maior parte das nossas participantes efetivamente conseguissem implementar os resultados da pesquisa. E outro também elemento que resultou da pesquisa, que fez com que os negócios crescessem, foi que houve um crescimento de clientes, não é? Com algumas variações em função do contexto, mas de forma geral houve um crescimento de negócios. E um outro que eu acho que poderia fazer a ponta aqui com o que a Iana disse, a questão de fazer os registros financeiros, também eu acho que foi um dos elementos mais importantes para que efetivamente os negócios crescessem, né? E não só com o grupo do Move a Mais, mas também as empreendedoras do PAM nunca tinham cogitado a hipótese de terem um salário dentro dos seus negócios. Portanto, quando chega o momento de refletir em cima disso, é um momento repleto assim, de muita emoção e que também contribui muito para a questão do empoderamento, né? Não só olharem para o negócio como um passatempo ou algo que eu faço quando eu não estou a cuidar da minha família, quando eu não estou a cuidar das crianças ou a fazer os meus deveres domésticos, mas elas perceberem que aquela atividade vai lhes dar um salário, né? Que o seu emprego ou o seu negócio não é formal, mas pode lhes dar um salário. Portanto, é uma coisa muito poderosa. E em termos de retenção de trabalho, conseguimos, por exemplo, no primeiro ciclo, fazer com que os números de funcionários não reduzissem, não é? E como eu disse, a priori, nós iniciamos logo em março, que foi assim no pico da pandemia, e conseguimos que as nossas microempreendedoras conseguissem manter os seus postos de trabalho, que foi também assim, motivou-nos imenso, desafiador no meio da crise, com tantos receios, e conseguimos fazer com que elas mantivessem não só os negócios, a questão da resiliência, mas também os pequenos postos de trabalho que existiam, conseguimos manter pelo menos durante a nossa intervenção. Um outro elemento importante, que é a questão da discussão sobre gênero e contratar mais mulheres, como eu disse, através da criação desse espaço seguro e das conversas honestas, conseguimos que houvesse uma certa mudança na mentalidade e elas começassem a ver o valor e o potencial de ter grupos mistos na equipa. E sobre a digitalização, eu já tinha partilhado um pouco mais, né? Esse foi um grande desafio e a nível da equipa também, tivemos que nos preparar, tivemos que fazer cursos em paralelo para entender ferramentas de gestão, WhatsApp Business, Google, etc. e tal. Então, conseguimos fazer esse acompanhamento e fazer com que efetivamente esses negócios se digitalizassem. Tivemos exemplos de empreendedoras que fecharam os espaços físicos para se dedicarem no negócio online, o que para nós foi muito bonito ver o quanto elas conseguiram abraçar e engajarem-se nesse mundo digital, que para o contexto moçambicano, pelo menos para o gênero feminino, o mundo digital é um mundo que ainda assusta, não é? É um mundo que ainda tem muitos mistos, muitos mistérios em cima disso. Portanto, olhar o digital como um potencial para fazer crescer o negócio e como um instrumento de empoderamento, para mim também foi um aprendizado muito bom, não só para elas como empreendedoras, mas também para nós como equipe técnica por detrás. Iana, passo a bola para ti.
Thank you, Lud. So if you can move to the next slide, or maybe the last one, because we just have 8 minutes. So in terms of learnings overall, we saw that, the other one. So we saw that it's important to actually it pays off to have nuanced approaches to business development interventions, it's quite important, have actually an impact on the businesses, but not only the businesses, but also in the entrepreneurs' soft skills and self-confidence. In terms of analyzing and better understanding the context of the particular group you're working with, it's important there is a value on doing this robust social analysis to better understand the target group, because you're able to define the content specific to the target group and specific to the kind of business. Because when you're working with entrepreneurship, you're working on an individual level because it's someone that runs the company, but you're also working in system level because a company is a system. So you need to have those two things in perspective and understand those two target groups. If you can move to the next slide, please. Just not to go over time. So in terms of areas for further research, there's still a lot to learn on female entrepreneurship because it's also a rather new area, which gained momentum in the last 10 years. But looking at what we have done and what we have learned, and also what we didn't find in the literature yet, we identified three main areas that could benefit from further research. First one is more understanding of the Mover Mais, Mover Plus type of intervention and target group. Also to make this target group more visible and enable more widespread promotion of interventions targeting informal entrepreneurs, because they are the majority of entrepreneurs and working population, especially women in countries like Mozambique. So it's quite important to understand what works really well to this target group, especially the informal ones. A second area of further research is to explore and the development of more tailored approaches and specific interventions to promote different kinds of female entrepreneurship in different contexts and realities. So more about the not fitting everybody in the same box. And the last one, which I think it's quite interesting, and I personally will be very interesting to look into this in the next years, is how women entrepreneurs could move through the entrepreneurship pyramid. So when you begin in the bottom of the pyramid, how can you move to maybe not the top of the pyramid, but the middle of the pyramid? Understanding the types of interventions and the time frame needed for a young woman on the bottom of the pyramid to actually achieve the level of a small company that employs people, it's quite important. We don't know. I mean, we see some kinds of success cases that the person was struggling and then she was able to move forward and to open a business and earned a lot of money and now employs a lot of people. But how much time and how much effort and how much resources are needed to actually make this leap? We don't know. So I think this is quite important in terms of research and in terms of the field of entrepreneurship itself and female entrepreneurship specifically. Magali, over to you. I don't know, Ludmila, if you want to add something.
All right, well, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we are all out of time, so I don't think we'll be able to engage with any questions. But if anyone does have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us separately. So I would like to say really a very big thank you to Ludmila and Iana for your presentation and for sharing such powerful case studies with really clear, demonstrable impact on the entrepreneurs that MUVA has worked with. It's been a really interesting discussion today. Before we close, I would like to invite our audience to join us for next week's webinar, which will be on Wednesday, May 25th at 3 p.m. UK time. This will again be a two-part event. And this time we will look at soft skills trainings and access to first jobs. So in the first hour, we will again have a panel discussion, and we will be joined by several practitioners who will talk about their work. These will be Dr. Christy Oldnick from Making Sense, Kyla Sparks from Harambee Youth Employment Accelerator, and our very own Anne-Cécile Rebello and Lelio Gungulo from MUVA. In the second hour of next week's webinar, we will have the chance to take a closer look at some of MUVA's successful initiatives, which have combined soft skills and insertion into the labor market. So the link to register for that event and our remaining webinars is available on the OPM website's MUVA webinar series page, and it will also be circulated shortly on MUVA and OPM social media channels. So we hope to see you there. To close, I would like to thank Sandra Tamel for her interpreting, as well as the Forever Consulting team for their technical support to the webinar series. And really a very big thank you to today's speakers and to you, our audience, for joining us on this occasion. See you next week.